All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. This week, I wanted to quickly shout out and just give some props to our agency. We had just pulled our end of year numbers. We're recording this. It's on January 20th for that update for our newsletter. But if you're watching this on YouTube, I just wanted to give a shout out to our whole team. So our top 30 agencies, Calvin, for the year, were all over 1.3 million for the year, which is awesome, meaning that they average over 100 grand a month. And there might have been a couple more that were over that number. It's just that our numbers cut off at top 30. And our top 43 producers were all over 400,000. So all Hall of Fame for the top 43 people, which is pretty amazing because I think that company-wide there's probably 80 or 90 Hall of Fame producers. So we have a good majority of them. Testament to everyone watching this, and I think people just plugging in and understanding, how to run a system, and that all of our managers sell at a really high level too. So I just wanted to give everyone a big shout out as a starting point for today. I have Calvin with me. Calvin, how long have you been doing insurance for now?
I'm just knocking on the door of 4 years. Like next month, March will be, March 2 months from now, and March will be 4 years.
Got it. So this will be okay. So did you hit Hall of Fame 4 times?
Yeah, this is my fourth time hitting it.
Got it. That's awesome. I don't know how many people we've had that hit it 4 times, but you might be one of the only ones, I think. I don't know if Easton hit it again or not, or how many times he hit it, but 4 times is pretty awesome.
I'm sure he hit it.
I hit it 3 times, but I only tried 3 times. I wish I got 4. 4 is a better number than 3. So that's awesome to have that level of consistency. What I wanted to have you on and go over today is I think you started out in the business really fast, sold a lot, had some ups and downs. Like some bad stuff happens in business sometimes, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'd love for you to talk for a minute about how you were able to still keep writing at such a consistent level for 4 years, and then how you dealt with some of the downturns in the business, because there are some bad things that happen in business, and if you're in it for 4 years.
Yeah. I had a really strong start to the business. I was just recruiting and selling and just trying to figure it all out. And then I had some pitfalls where I hired some people that weren't so good for the business, that did some, fraudulent stuff. And I kind of just took it on the chin. Like at first I called you, I was kind of freaking out. It was a multiple 6-figure roll up debt that this dude wrote some fraud. And I was like, my business, I'm done. Like I'm never going to make it. Like I have to pay all this back. How am I going to pay my bills and do all this stuff? And you were like, dude, just chill. Just relax for a second, take it in, and it's gonna be okay. Like you're gonna get it. We're gonna figure it out. Like you can slowly pay it back. It's not like you have to take it all tomorrow. And it really reassured me that people were there to help me, and that I was part of the right company. Most companies have been like, dude, figure it out or leave, right? And you guys were there to support me through the whole entire process. It took 12 to 24 months to get it taken care of, but it just, in my opinion, everybody goes through ups and downs no matter what phase of the business they're in. Like at some point, they're going to have a pitfall at some point, in my opinion. Like everybody's going to have to get ruffled up a little bit. And that just happened in the beginning of my career. That just happened to be early on. And since then, I have developed, become a resilient, and kept my consistency because I knew that nothing could get me down. Like that wasn't going to ruin my day. It wasn't going to ruin my life. Like I was going to be okay, and I'm not dead. And by doing so, it just kind of re-motivated me just to be super consistent, because in the business you can make a ton of money really quick, which is awesome. But a lot of times people take their foot off the gas when they see their bank account fill up more than what they thought they could ever imagine happen. Yeah. And for me, it wasn't about that. It was just always leading by example, showing my agents that even if you're making good money, it's okay to still write and lead from the front. And that's where in the military, that's what they taught me. Mm-hmm. Like even when you accomplish, get medals, schools, all these things, like those dudes are still doing the activity that got them there, and they didn't stop.
Yeah. And one thing I've always tried to remember is when something happens, like good or bad in business, or in life, I think it seems like a really big deal when it happens,
Yeah.
And it could even be something as small as like a chargeback, or a carrier won't approve somebody you want to get, or an agent rolls debt. And it could be a lot of debt, but it seems huge. But you're past that debt you had to pay off.
Yeah.
And I remember I went through the same thing. I had to pay off a couple $100,000 debt one time. Mm-hmm. And the perspective I had to have was I've made a lot of money in this business. This is just kind of par for the course of business. There are going to be bad things. But looking back on it now, does it even seem like that big of a deal to you now that you have it paid off?
No, it's kind of just one of the check the blocks. That's done. It's good. And it probably would never happen again. And if it did, it'd be probably to my own doing. But it just reminds me, even if there's a couple, $1,000, whatever, I'm not freaking out about it. It's one policy. It doesn't even matter. The big ones, they hurt a little bit more, but life's going to continue, and it's part of doing business. And I think a good example that they always give, and when I talk to new agents now, is you own a t-shirt shop. if someone returns a t-shirt that you sold that you got paid on, you have to return the money because they're returning the product.
Right.
And I keep that in the back of my head just because it's like, it's part of business. There's going to be some type of transactional things that happen, and it is what it is, and just keep moving.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had to learn that. I had to learn that too, right? Is it's like you can't react emotionally to when things happen in business. It's not happening to you. It's just part of the business. It's part of the game. You know, if you look at like a game where you're like, okay, like I can't be mad at the game. I just have to figure out how to play within it and deal with the stuff as it comes up and stay mentally strong as it comes up, you know?
Yeah.
What do you think are some of the things from, you know, if you had to pick something, like, is it your schedule? Is it, you know, lead flow? Is it script? Like what has allowed you to be a Hall of Fame producer 4 times in a row? What's the biggest key? Like if you had to pick one thing, like if you're creating an agent, and, you know, you give them like a 10 out of 10 on one part of the business, what would the 10 out of 10 be?
10 out of 10 would always be, in my opinion, lead flow, because no matter what happens, like the schedule's great, it's cool, it's part of the business, but that's not a determining factor if you're going to be consistent in because the leads change all the time. Like you've been doing this for 7 years, like there's probably been 50 different lead types. But if you always have the same amount of leads coming in or the same cost going out that's getting you the people to talk to, the consistency is there because you're not riding the emotional roller coaster of, oh, I put $1,000 in the leads or $2,000 in this week. I didn't sell one, so I'm not going to buy them next week. No matter what, I always have fresh people to talk to. And you've been really good in the beginning of explaining that to me, because like the first week I sold a couple policies and you're like, did you get leads? And I was like, no, I still have some old ones. And you're like, you have to keep continuously having new people to talk to. Yeah. And I just never let my foot off the gas on that piece. Yeah. And again, back to the lead situation, everyone's always, which leads? What's the best one? How do you know what to get? I'm like, dude, anything's better than nothing. Yeah. Get something. Like you need people to talk to, or else you're going to sell nothing.
Right. Yeah, I think it's easy to overcomplicate this business, right? They're like which lead type or which recruiting source or which phone script. And it's like, it doesn't really matter. And like, I've been in the industry now 7, like this year will be my 8th year at the end of this year in the industry. And I've seen like companies that do all warm market do well, companies that sell only final expense do well, people that sell just term, mortgage, one product, multiple products. Like everyone does well somewhere, right? Yeah. And I think it's great that we have access to all of it because it allows us to be the best and have the best platform. But all that matters is getting good at whatever you're doing, you know? Yeah. And figuring out what your niche is, getting really good at that one, and not getting distracted by every little thing that pops up, but just doing one thing at a time and not being all over the place.
Yeah. And I started almost 4 years ago, just coming up on 4 years. When I started, we were in home. When like my 2.5 year, like in the middle of my career, we went virtual. Mm-hmm. Then we started doing IULs, and then it was a combination of everything. But like at least starting with something and sticking with that for the first 12 months before switching and trying new things and trying new leads consistently, I just stuck it out. Everybody was like, the first year in the business, I just picked CRM leads and I picked the second chance leads, and that's just what I did the entire year.
Yeah, you sold a lot of insurance off of those, right?
Yeah, and then I changed, and then I went to a newer lead, and then I changed to IUL, and I just did whatever the business was calling for at that time, which helped me continue to adapt and overcome, and not ride the wave.
Yeah, what are some of the things from the building perspective that you think you've seen? And I know you've talked about it. You want to be farther ahead than you are now, but if you have a team that's doing $400,000 to $500,000 a month, like in the industry, that's a pretty big deal. You know, at FFL, it's kind of skewed because we have so many people that do so well. So you kind of feel like you're falling behind. But like, what are some of the things that you plan on changing this year? Because I think if I was talking to Ronnie about this the other day, I think going from like 0 to 150 is not that hard. Like you need like 5 or 6 people that sell some insurance to do that. Yeah. Then going from 150 to like 600 is the hardest phase. And then from like 600 to $1 million, like you kind of just keep going because you have some other leaders on your team and you have kind of a machine built and you have momentum and it keeps snowballing. As long as you don't F it up, it keeps snowballing. Yeah. You know? But like you're kind of in that phase. I think that phase of like 150 to 400, 500 is the most painful because you're paying a lot of money out. You're trying to get some other leaders. And if you get stuck there, it just feels like you can't really get momentum. So like, what are some of the things you think you're going to change this year to get through that, to get to $1 million by the end of the year?
A couple of things that I had a hard time with, even like the past year when I'm building my agency, was I was trying to be everything to everyone. Yeah. And this last 6 months, I've tried leveraging a lot of other people to help like reinforce or ensure like the agents are also doing the same activity. So we've been really good like in the last 6 days, we've been really foot to the ground on everybody doing the same activity, everybody's working the same type of leads. Yeah. All of the people that are potential managers are recruiting and they're actively bringing in new people. And when I made my goal in my head, I was like, hey, I need to get to 500 grand. I didn't really have any actionable things to hit 500 grand. I just thought I was going to do it. People were going to do things with or without me. Like it was just going to happen. And it's really not the case at all.
Yeah.
I have to be super involved in, okay, so to get to 500 grand, and if the average person does 15 to 20K, how many people do I need to bring on per week to make sure that we are actively working towards 500 grand or a million or whatever? My goal is to be at 1 million by June. But, I didn't understand that for the longest time. I just thought people were going to do it no matter what, and I wasn't super involved. And so this year we've changed a lot, being super involved with each individual person, knowing what their goals is. Not everybody's going to be a full 40K Hall of Fame producer. Some people have goals of just doing 20 or 10 or whatever the case is. Meet them where they're at and help them where they need to be helped, and then actively bring in new people direct, which we've been doing a really good job at.
Yeah.
And my business has spread out a lot better, and the profitability has been a lot higher, but. And I've been working with you on bringing in more cold market people, which we've been working on in the office and here in Austin and working through their warm markets. And then I brought Cyrus in the business. This has been helpful, like my brother, to talk to his warm market. And having younger people in the business, I realized, is super helpful because they're so, like when we went to high school together, our friend group was huge and we had tons of legs that come off of that, and you meet a bunch of people. The older you get, that gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So having the new fresh blood that's younger in the business has also been extremely helpful. Noah's hired like 10 people in the last 30 days, like, and setting good expectations of like, hey, dude, you need to come in. You're going to spend $1,000 on leads. I'm going to help give you some more on top of that to fuel the fire. And we're going to have a couple weeks to get you paid quick, and then snowball that. And at first I was like, dude, you need to do this, and then let me know when you need help. And I wasn't like really in Zoom. I wasn't really doing the right activities.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fair to say that like with some of your people, you definitely spent too much time with people that weren't giving the right ROI. Yeah. And like you were just, and I remember, dude, that once I kind of figured that out, where it was like just work wherever like it's having an actual effect and don't work with people it's not having an effect. Like, and you don't have to be rude about it. I think people want to fire people sometimes. I'm like, you can be more subtle, Yeah. You just start spending less time with someone, When has that clicked for you? That was like the biggest thing that changed for me was like, oh, I'm spending time with the same 5 people, and there's no like, when I have a conversation, it doesn't have an effect. Like when I spend time with them, it doesn't have they don't grow. So I need to go move on.
Yeah.
Was that something that you found that you've started focusing on now, you think?
Yeah, we were talking, I don't know who said it. I think you told me the other day, but it was like A, B, and C person.
Yeah.
Maybe it was Sean. I can't remember.
A player, B player, C player.
Yeah. That clicked for me, honestly. That hit hard because then I could look at each individual person and I could see like really where I need to spend my time. And like you said, I'm not like just not ignoring the people that are like the B and C players. I just am not teaching them how to do underwriting or like silly stuff. That
you're treating them like B and C players.
Yeah. Like I'm like, hey, I can here to help. Or if you have a question about, how to write a policy, why don't you call the carrier or ask someone else in our, within the organization rather than asking me like, you've been here for a year, dude. You know how to write the policy,
right?
And so that's been helpful. I know who like to spend a majority of my time with, and I do.
Let me explain that. I'll explain that to people real quick. So because I think like for me, like having little frameworks with things helped a lot. Like when I was trying to learn how to teach people how to sell insurance, and then I learned it was like, okay, it's either lead flow, they're not working enough, or they're not good at closing, right?
Yeah.
And then I could start like sorting into those categories. I was like, oh, I know where to help people. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what like the A, B, and C player thing kind of did for you and for me for when you're recruiting people to like figure out like who you're working with. So like a C player is someone like if they quit, you wouldn't care at all, and you'd go like, yeah, I'm glad they quit. Like who cares? A B player is someone who quit, and you're like, oh, that's kind of a bummer. Like they were okay, but you're not devastated. You don't really care. Like you're not emotionally affected by it. And then an A player is like you have someone who quits your team, and you're like, oh my God, how'd this happen? Like they were amazing. Like this is really bad for my business. That person quit. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about that meeting. We're like, hey, like, do you have any A players? And a lot of people, I'm not gonna call you out because that's not appropriate. But a lot of people at that meeting were like, no, I don't have any A players. Mm-hmm. Because I don't have anyone that comes to mind and I'm thinking about it. I'm like, I have some A players, but not as many as you'd think for a group that has 600 agents.
Yeah,
probably 10, 15, 8. I don't know. Like, but it's not a ton. And if you can identify a few A players, you can build a really big organization.
Yeah, and and I think people go through seasons too. Like maybe they might not always be an A player or a B player, and they can work up to it. I think we did talk about that, and it's like so a C or B player can become an A player. It just depends on when they choose to be so, and you can't force it on them.
Right.
And so that's one thing that we've been working with. Like, what is your goals? Because that's going to really help me figure out like where I need to develop that person or how to develop them. Like at least in the military, I went to a ton of leadership schools, so I do know how to develop the people into managers or agents into agency owners. but it's sometimes it's timing, and it's all about like what they truly want. And
Yeah.
so I've just been trying to understand that and like and recognize it and just sit with that rather than be like, dude, you're 40K or die or 10K a week or quit. And that's what it was in the beginning, and it's just really not the way it works.
Yeah. Yeah. To your point, like people develop at different times, come at their own. Like my first 2 years in the business or first year and a half in the business, like I didn't really want to build a team. And I was cool just being left alone. And I'm glad no one like bothered me too much. And I came to it on my own by getting around everyone, seeing people build. And I started seeing myself as a business person and I'm more, you know, I mean, we've known each other for a long time. I'm more introverted by nature. Like I don't really want to be talking to people all day long if I can help it. But I started to really like the business. So I felt good about coaching a few people in it. When you started, I mean, now you've had a lot of financial success. You just bought an amazing house. Like you have bought a lot of things probably that you didn't ever think you were going to, or maybe you did. I don't know. But like, do you think that you were going to be able to buy this stuff and do the stuff for your family, your wife that you've done now when you started? And did you see yourself as like a business person right when you got the military? And like, when did that start to change, do you think?
That's a great question. I honestly was thinking about that on the way to the office today because I was like, I never imagined myself like doing the things I'm doing now, buying, you know, a significantly larger home.
Like $1 million and $1.6 million house.
Yeah. A bigger
It's
house.
crazy.
Like, I think some people were calling it like a big boy house or whatever. Like
Yeah.
cars, like the lifestyle is insane.
Yeah.
But I didn't see the lifestyle until I started getting around the people that also already had the lifestyle or were on their way there.
Yeah.
And so I was so stuck in this mindset, especially coming from the military, of like, oh, like 300,000 to 400,000, you know, 600 grand a year is great. Like these much smaller goals
Yeah.
that almost put you in like middle America or like middle to upper class. And I just never was exposed to it, so I couldn't like envision it or like see myself there. And once I started getting around you and other people in the business, Sean, like Andrew, all these big players in the business, I could see that it's really there. It's like people do it all day long. People actually make 100, 200, 300 grand a month, and the money is there. You just have to find the path to get there. And we've been golfing a lot lately, and we've been going to the neighbor's country club, your country club, all these different country clubs, and you see these people there with all this money, and you're like we were leaving golf, and that dude was driving away in a Ferrari talking about a private jet, and you were like, what the
I
hell?
was like, what does that guy do?
Right? You're like, it's there. And once I got around the right people and I stopped messing around with like I guess people in different stages of their life.
Yeah.
And it really opened up and I was like, okay, I could definitely do this. I can see myself there. Once I saw the vision, I was like, I'm doing it. I'm making it happen.
Yeah. Once you meet some people who have made a lot of money, some people are super impressive. Like I'm sure if I met Elon Musk, I'd be like, that guy is incredibly impressive. But like a lot of people that have made a good bit of money I met, I'm like, they work hard, they're good people, like they're consistent, but they're not like special, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember thinking that, I'm like, well, dude, if they can do it, like, why not me? You know, like they just have the right relationships, the right knowledge base, but like we can learn all that stuff. It doesn't take some innate ability.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, like the people that make the most money, the most successful, are just really good at delegating and spending time. Like they know what they're not good at and delegate that away to other people.
I was really bad at that at the beginning.
Yeah.
I was trying to do 100% of everything. And then someone told me, like, if someone else can do 80% of what you can do, and it's just 80% is good, like, that's a good return on investment of your time.
Absolutely. Yeah. I remember I was thinking about that. I'm like, if I spend an hour doing something that I hate, I'm not good at, it makes me no money, and I can just pay someone else to do it. And even if it's not perfect, like if I pay someone else to do it and I can spend time doing something that generates income, that's a win. You know?
All day long.
Awesome, dude. Well, hey, we'll cut this one a little short today. We'll definitely do another one. I appreciate you jumping on, and it's an honor to be in business with you. And congrats on the 4 years in a row. That's amazing, dude.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate you. I couldn't have done it without all the help and guidance and everything you've showed me along the way.